I am Sergeant First Class Retired Joseph Naseef and honored to be the Master of Ceremony. On behalf of the Hazleton Area Cyber Academy, presented by Michelle Medic and Maria D'Amato, we will now hold a ceremony in observance of Veterans Day. Assistant Superintendent Robert Mahalik, Principal Chris Bonomo, State Representative Dane Watro, community members, friends, family, and especially veterans, thank you all for gathering with us today as we honor the courageous men and women who have served and continue to serve in armed forces of this great nation. It is a privilege to be here on Veterans Day, a time when we come together to pay tribute to those who have answered the call to protect our freedoms, our values, and our way of life. Veterans Day is more than just a holiday. It's a moment for reflection and gratitude. It's a reminder that the freedoms we enjoy each day come at a cost, and that those freedoms have been defended through sacrifices made by people of extraordinary dedication and bravery. Today we recognize those who have worn the uniform across all branches in times of both peace and war. We acknowledge the deep sense of duty that led them to serve, and we acknowledge the sacrifices made by their families as well. Their strength and resilience set an example for all of us. We will begin with the presentation of colors ceremony conducted to honor and thank who served in the United States Armed Forces. The colors refers to red, white, and blue colors of our American flag. If able, please rise for the presentation of colors.
Left. Arms.
Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, sing us that star-spangled banner yet wave, o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
This morning we are recognizing all service members for their service and sacrifice. One of those members, a member of our community, is here, and the Hazleton Area Cyber Academy would like to introduce you to Sergeant First Class David Coles. Sergeant First Class Coles has an Associates of Applied Science in Business Management from Purdue University. He's a medical platoon sergeant for the PA Army National Guard 1st of the 109th Infantry in Scranton, PA. A small business owner of David Can Do It Home and Handyman Services, and a production supervisor for PACTAV Evergreen. Sergeant First Class Coles is deployed to Iraq with the 56th Stryker Brigade as a cavalry combat medic, activated for national missions including Hurricane Katrina and Pope John Paul's Philadelphia visit. He has been on medical missions in Grafenwehr, Germany, Fort Indiantown Gap, and various COVID-19 locations. Sergeant First Class Coles.
Thank you, Sergeant Naseef. Thank you, Mrs. Medic and Mrs. D'Amato, for having me here, Principal Bonomo. And thank you all for having me here and inviting me for this opportunity to observe and to honor our veterans with you. Thank you, veterans, for what you've done for us and our nation. As Sergeant Naseef said, I am Sergeant First Class David Coles. I currently serve in the Pennsylvania Army National Guard as a medical platoon sergeant for the 1st 109th up in Scranton. I served my tour in Iraq and many local and state missions. I feel I was born to be a veteran. The original reason was because my birthday is November 11th, Veterans Day, which I thought, I got off school every year, it's awesome, it's unique, until I learned that two of my fellow medics at my previous unit, David Schaefer and David Ambart, also had the same November 11th birthday. So there were three of us with the same birthday and same first name. My current unit, I have another soldier who lives here in town, also born November 11th, but her name's Madeline. Either way, it'll still make for a good celebration come Monday. Every year that I'm fortunate enough to get to wear this uniform, I'm increasingly grateful for the bond that is shared between veterans and all those that have worn the uniform. From various generations, spread all over the services, spanning from the conflicts on the shores of the Atlantic, the coasts and the islands of the Pacific, the jungles, mountains, cities, fields, and deserts in between. Then just to come home and deal with the VA. But they're getting better every year. Jokes aside, the people I meet, the stories I hear, often at events like this, fortify my gratitude that I have for my fellow veterans, for the sacrifices they had to endure and their families have endured, for all of us to live in this, the greatest country in the world, allowing us our freedoms, comforts, and the opportunities that we have. It is you, my brother and sister veterans, with your unique backgrounds and stories and experiences that we come together each year to honor for Veterans Day as a community. Being in the military, surrounded by so many great men and women, has had a profound impact on my life. It has fortified my sense of duty, my ability to work hard, my strive for improvement, and my overall perspective. One of my early ATs in the Guard, as many of you know, we're supposed to do 1 weekend a month and 2 weeks in the summer. Those 2 weeks in the summer are called annual training. But because everything in the military has to have an acronym, we call it AT. So I'm at AT and we're staying out in the field. We have our GP medium tents up. Think the typical tents you've seen, the green MASH tents on TV. We have our vehicles and our equipment tactically placed around the trees and around the area. One of my sergeants, Bobby Hoyko, told me, dig a trench around the tent. This is to help keep the rain out. Then fortify the area, the walls, and the corners with sandbags. We were already out there for a couple of days. We weren't expecting any rain, which those of you familiar with the Gap know that that's amazing in itself. And we were planning on jumping the CP the next day. I believe I was an E3 or barely an E4 at the time. And I asked the sergeant, I asked him and said, why are we doing all this work if we're just going to tear down tomorrow? He said, you always continuously improve your area until you're tearing down. 21, 22 years later, that has always stuck with me. You never stop improving. Continuously make your world better. I don't believe that sergeant intended to give me a lifelong lesson, but he did. That's what being a veteran, being a service member means to me. It means having the fortitude to give it your all, accomplish difficult things, and to be a part of your community. Each of us has the ability to be a positive component within the circles we're involved. In the civilian world, I have a local small business. I'm a manufacturing supervisor. I coach youth sports. I have my wife, my son, and my daughter all at home. And my hope is that someday a score down the road, I'll be able to be that sergeant, that father, that boss, that coach that gives some young person a lifelong lesson to better themselves and others. Veterans strive to do their best. They tend not to They tend not to let what they can't do influence their lives, but rather strive off of what they can. We've all seen those war-torn veterans that come home with horrific injuries on the news, online, that are out doing wonderful things, they're accomplishing their life dreams, they're leading groups. They're being all that they can. Most often, veterans do that not because they had to. They do it so that their families and friends and neighbors and communities can be a little bit more at peace, knowing that somebody's out there putting in the work, putting in the duty, putting in their time for them. Veterans, we would not be able to have the life we have if not for your sacrifices and burdens you've endured. To the wives, husbands, families, thank you for your support, for the hardships you've also endured over the years for our veterans. In a few days, America will pause to give honor to our veterans. But today, on behalf of the Hazleton Area Cyber Academy and myself, we want to show our honor, express our gratitude, and say thank you.
The Hazleton Area Arts and Humanities Instrumental Studio will now perform America the Beautiful. The students are led by Hazleton Area Cyber Academy music teacher Jude Stefanik.
Close, march.
About face. Forward, march. About face.
Right, face. Forward, march. Back.